Hello, and it is Friday, and once again, sorry to say it, but we do not have a guest, but I'll be right back and we'll let you know where we're going to go with the show today. Hello, and welcome back to Friday's version of The Way It Is Naturally with Bill Fierce. My name is Perry, and I am the host of the show. Sadly, I'd like to just mention again that we do not have a guest. I am a little bit disappointed with that, but with that said, I'm going to put this out there to anybody that might know some good forums to log into, places online where people kind of share those type of stories. Maybe to seek out individuals that might not get them out of their shell and maybe make them a little bit more comfortable about going public with what they've done with themselves. So I just thought I'd put that out there. And in that same vein, I'd just like to mention something that really ticked me off today. I did mention several times that I use a piece of software called MyFitnessPal. And it is a great piece of software for several reasons. First of all, it's free. There is a paid version, but the free one does just fine for most people. And it's good for basically, cataloging your diet and following your diet and breaking down your macros and your micronutrients and planning your meals. It's if you like to do that thing, or if you're starting down a brand new venture, I do recommend doing that. And so it is great for that. But they have areas in there within that when you log in, you have an account where they have forums and things like that. And I have to tell you that twice now, pardon my language, I've been severely pissed off with these people because twice I've logged on, created a discussion for the sole purpose of finding individuals to come on to the show. It's not for any type of monetary gain for myself. It's basically to give everybody a chance to talk about their successes, and maybe if you're a competitor, give yourself some press, whatever. But twice they've taken down my content and issued me a warning for solicitation. This is the type of garbage that goes on in our world these days, and shame on you for the people at MyFitnessPal for pulling that kind of crap. It makes me think of two things. You just have some buddies out there that maybe you just want to promote them, or you're not interested in people that promote natural production of physiques, bodybuilding, fitness shows, whatever the case might be. In either case, it's your loss, and we will round up enough people. I know there's lots of interest in training naturally, competing naturally. It'll just take some time, and just bear with me. So we are going to wing it as we do with just about everything. When I say wing it, no plan, but I do have an idea that I want to go over on this show, and I don't script anything. So sometimes, I might stumble on my words, but that's okay. You're getting the real deal. You're not getting prepared statements. You're not getting prepared apologies, which is the shit that we get these days from all types of media. It's like nobody can speak from the heart anymore. I have 40 years behind me that allows me to speak about just about anything concerning this passion of mine. I don't need to rehearse it. I don't need to, look for other documentation. It's not that I don't go and research things. I do on occasion, but most of what I share with you is through expertise that I picked up over the last 40 some years. And it is expertise, and you can't gain that in a book, in a class, or on a certificate. So what I thought I would do today is I thought I would talk in general about each muscle group, short, and then discuss what I consider, at least what are my go-to exercises for these muscle groups. And I think that might help both beginners and experienced lifters. People may have a better idea, where to start. If you're not using a trainer, or if you haven't contacted myself, or whatever the case might be. In either case, I think it'll be an interesting show, and hopefully by next Friday we'll have a guest for Spotlight Friday. So why don't we just start at the top and work our way down? I'll go by how I break myself up. I do a 3-day split. I train a high intensity principle, so I only go 3 days a week to the gym, and I train my body parts once a week, and I only hit them with 3 sets total. That's it. So the exercise I'm using right now are basically some of the core of what I normally would do. And I'll tell you why a couple of my go-tos, I'm not doing them right now, and we'll go from there. So we'll start with what would be my first day of the week, which would be chest and back. I do chest and back together. It's, I like working opposing muscle groups. I find it a good system. I've been doing it off and on for years, almost exclusively for every show that I've ever done. I've always gone on this system. Not necessarily on the high intensity or the HIIT training program, but I've always gone with a split that resembled chest, back, shoulders, and arms, and legs. So let's start with back. Your back is comprised of, several areas. But and some people don't necessarily group their back together the same way I do. There's your lower back. There's your, your center back, your outer lats, and your trapezius. I do not do my trapezius, even though the trapezius is considered part of the back. I group it together with my shoulder girdle exercises. I've been doing it for years. It feels effective, and I don't think I'll ever change that. It's kind of, there's two, the trapezius, basically, starts at the end, almost at the end of your clavicle and comes down in a triangular section. So part of that is, really connected to the shoulder girdle, and, as you go further down the triangle portion, then you get more into, the actual, where it attaches to the back. So just to, give you an idea of what we're talking about here. So let's start with the trapezius. So for a trapezius, or trapezoids, whatever you want to call them, many people will do an assortment of exercise. They might do dumbbell shrugs. They might do barbell shrugs, Smith machine shrugs. When you get into people like do compound movements, they might do power cleans. For the sake of bodybuilding and fitness, I've almost exclusively done dumbbell shrugs and barbell shrugs. People also incorporate upright rowing. I don't necessarily believe that upright rowing really zeroes in on the trapezius as much, but it is an effective exercise if done with a reasonable weight, so you can focus on the mind-muscle connection. So what is my first choice? My first choice is, personally, as lately has gone back to doing barbell shrugs. I still do them fairly strict. I don't throw weights around very much with any exercise, to be quite honest with you, especially when I'm doing HIIT training. Because with HIIT training, and you're going all out intensity like that, there's such a potential for dangerously injuring yourself if you get careless with the weights. I do cheat a rep here and there. I do force reps, but I do it with caution, and I do a cheat, not a throw, only because I don't normally utilize a training partner. So, for the traps, I will go back and forth between dumbbell shrugs and barbell shrugs. I find personally dumbbell shrugs gives me what seems to be a more longer range of motion, and I like that. And I particularly like that in the concentric portion of the exercise. When I'm fully contracted, I really prefer the dumbbells. But for overall, I actually like the barbell. And I do find that my strength increases a lot when I do it with the barbell. I use very little motion, and I always hold it at the top, not for a long period of time, until I get to the point where I'm doing a forced rep. When I do a forced rep, and I tend to try and hold that rep and just drop it really, really slow. And you have to understand, when you're doing shrugs, your range of motion isn't very large in the first place. So, keep it under control, and you can develop some very thick upper traps. You can develop some great strength in the whole shoulder girdle from doing them. And I think it's the best. Like I said, if I choose one, I will choose barbell shrugs. There's also shrugging machines as well for some gyms that have them. And for some people, especially people who prefer to do circuit training style, these are very effective as well. Okay, so we got traps out of the way in the area of the back. Even though that's not part of my workout, we're going to group it in the back for today. Okay. Then we can go into, most days I will do some version of a pull down. And I want to get a little myth out of the way in the first place here. Doing wide grip chins, whether it be to the back or to the front, does not give you unnecessarily a wider back. It just doesn't. And as a matter of fact, the wider you go on the grip, the less range of motion you get, and I believe it's less effective. I believe you should need to require a medium grip, or you go to another version. And I can tell you, for a good part of my competitive years, I did either, and I'll tell you one other thing too. I almost exclusively stay away from pull downs behind the neck. I want you to understand that the job of the traps is to basically take the arms and pull them back and pull them down. So the natural range of motion is to pull it down towards your clavicle. And that's where you should be pulling down to. I see people all the time being instructed by trainers. They're pulling down here, or they're pulling down here, or they're way back here. You're basically taking away the effectiveness of that movement. That movement it's not designed to be a low pulley row, and it's not designed to be some type of serratus exercise. It's not. So with that in mind, I think you need to do all your movements should be to the front, and you have a choice. You can do a medium grip always to the clavicle. You can do a triangular bar, or you can do reverse grip on a straight bar. Either one of those three. And I can tell you, for the first 5 years of my training, after my first year or two of getting over all the myths that people had, about everything from toe positions on your calves to, how you had to do your lat pull downs, you name it. Through a lot of trial and error and thinking, I realized that you don't, and many people will agree with me, you don't need to do wide grip pull downs in order to have a wider back. And the other myth too is doing those does not make your shoulder girdle expand. You can't create width that isn't there. Your bone growth stops at a certain point, and that is it. You can add meat to your shoulder caps, you can add meat to your back, but you can't make your shoulder actual bone structure wider. So doing wide grip pull downs does not make your back wider. It doesn't widen the bone structure. Keep that in mind. And if you ask me what exercise do I think is the best in the category of pull downs, I've always liked the triangle pull downs to the upper chest, to the clavicle. And I've always had one of the best backs in every show. And one of my best body parts. I don't like to have best body parts because that kind of says that you're not in proportion. But when compared to other competitors, my back was always strong, top to bottom. And I believe the triangular pull downs to the front are the superior movement. I also want you to keep in mind, I want to mention this because it's very, very important. People almost exclusively use the wrong grip. Back movements, pull down movements in particular, and even some rowing movements, I believe should be done thumbless. I've been doing them thumbless. I teach thumbless. The reason being, trying to take the bicep out of the movement. And how do you do that? You basically treat your hands like they're hooks. So, if you're always, if your thumbs are outside of the bar, you're not gripping the bar like this, or outside the bar, basically it forces the movement into the back because you've taken the thumb grip out of the equation. When you make it thumbless, and if you try this, you will understand what I mean. Start with a light weight and just pull down with the actual arms and your fingers, and don't put any pressure on your thumbs at all. You will see what I mean by basically translating the weight from your arm to your lats as much as possible. It helps to isolate is what I'm trying to get at. Okay. So close grip on a triangle bar to the chest, I think, is the best exercise. Then we'll go into, I'll do some version of a rowing movement. Sometimes two, but I'll do some version. Okay. Now that could be seated rowing. It could be dumbbell, one-arm dumbbell rowing, or it can be barbell rowing. And it really depends on what I'm trying to do at that point. If I'm in the distant off season, or I'm in a building phase, I'm trying to get stronger. I prefer to do a reverse grip, Dorian Yates style barbell row. I haven't always done it that way. As a matter of fact, I probably put my lower back in jeopardy for many years because I've always done a complete stretch, quite wide, and almost had my back, on an angle. If this is my upper back and this is my legs, had my, facing the ground like this and really stretching out. That makes your lower back extremely vulnerable, and it's not good. So luckily for me, I've always been under control. I've never done a lot of throwing with the barbell, so I never had much in the way of lower back injury. So I say you do as Dorian Yates says, this is your body. I watched it executed. I've been practicing it myself for several years. Your body is really only tilted at this portion, and your motion is not all that long. And you do a reverse grip. And I've even done this thumbless as well. But sometimes I'll use a wrap. As a matter of fact, using wraps basically takes the grip right out of it and forces the work more into the lats. Okay. And when you're doing your barbell row like this, you'll emphasize the lower portion of the lats even more. Okay. Great exercise. Dumbbell rows also very effective. I tend to do a longer range of motion when I do a dumbbell row. I'll support myself on a weight stand. And the other one would be a cable row. And I mean a low cable row. I don't mean, rowing downwards. I don't mean rowing really low from the ground. I mean just basically equivalent to where your feet are at. That's the type of cable row you should be doing. It's the most effective one. And make sure that many machines, they make them they're so inferior, they don't design them properly because they're not designed so that when you are at full extension, half the time you're already, you're stacking out, I like to say. Basically, your weight's already hitting the stack. So you shorten the movement far too much. Machines that are designed properly allow you to do a good stretch without touching the weights at the bottom of the stack, therefore being under continuous tension, which is very important. Once again, thumbless, and when you do that exercise, you need to have an arch in the back. I should have mentioned that as well on pull downs. Always arch the back. You throw your chest, you keep your chest high, and you have an arch in the back. And that is how you do those exercises. If I have a choice and I can only do one, I've done many years exclusively dumbbell rowing. Single arm dumbbell rowing. It's been very effective at building a nice wide and thick back for me. It's good. It's a great exercise. If I'm on just an overall growth pattern, because I'm going to end up doing some deadlifting, sometimes I'll just stay away from that and I'll go from deadlifting to barbell rowing and do some type of pull down movement with that. I'll always finish off with. Now, I want you to understand this. If I had a pullover machine, I would probably do pullovers first, but I don't. So I do with a dumbbell. So I tend to do pullovers, which is another great great exercise for the upper back, and I will use that as a finish. I use that as a finish before I move on to my chest. There is no real equivalent to a dumbbell pullover, other than the fact that you can do it across the bench, you can do it with the bench, you can also do a straight arm barbell pullover. You always have to be very careful though, because it's so easy, if done improperly, to hurt your shoulder, tear a pec. Always exercise caution. When I say that, I don't mean that, these exercises are meant to be lethal. I see a lot of craziness in the gym and people just don't think. Okay, so always lots of control. Last thing I like to talk about is the lower back. Lower back, there's numerous exercises you can do, but to be honest with you, there's only a couple that are really effective that people do with any degree of redundancy. And that is good mornings, which many people also do, depending how you do them, for your hamstrings. There's also the Roman chair style of lower back hyperextension bench. Many people have access to. And the other one, of course, is a deadlift. Your deadlift is going to work your lower back. It's going to work it's going to be an overall back developer. Now, I don't generally use hyperextensions as my all-out lower back exercise, but I'll use that as a warm-up. And then I'll go into doing my lower back exercise, which is almost exclusively going to be deadlifting. And I don't deadlift all year round. When I'm basically in power mode, I'm trying to get my strength up and build size, I will incorporate deadlifts. And as a matter of fact, that's one thing I'm looking at here right now. Problem being, like many people, I lost almost 4 months worth of training. That put me actually in a precarious position. I lost some strength, I lost some muscle size, and it had an impact on my mental focus. So I wanted to get right back into doing some deadlifting, but I have to hold off for a little bit. I'm hoping the first week or so in August, I'll get back into doing it. But a great exercise, definitely a go-to. Okay. So let's go into chest. You've heard me mention it many, many times. Barbell bench press, absolutely useless exercise. Flat bench is what I'm saying. Okay. You're a power lifter. It's what you do. It's part of your game. It's how you compete. So you're going to do flat bench barbell work. Okay. It's a little bit more effective as dumbbells, but not near as effective as doing a incline. Now you can do a range of degrees in your incline, but I believe just a moderate incline is the way to go. And you use a moderate grip, not a super wide grip, not a super narrow grip. Super wide grip really narrows the range of motion. Super narrow grip takes the focus and puts it onto your front delts and your triceps. Okay, so keep that in mind. Moderate grip, and when you do the exercise, you do inclines, maybe a 30-degree incline max, and you do a very strict descent with the weight. Pop it up with a lot of force. Don't lock out for too long at all, or if, back down again. Always under control. Okay. You can also do declines. I've never been a fan of declines. Some people swear by them. I don't see the benefit of them, to be honest with you. The other exercise is going to be flat bench flies. You can also do incline flies. I see many people not doing those correctly. Many people tend to try and keep their arms way too straight, therefore really increasing the propensity to tear a pec, and it's also extremely hard on your joint as well. Okay, so if I had to choose, I'm going to talk about two exercises here because they're the ones that I'm using almost exclusively right now. There is a third exercise, but I generally bring that into play getting ready for a show, or if I just feel like, a movement where I can get bring out the pump and increase the intensity, and that would be cable flies. I see people calling them cable crossovers. I don't believe the movement should be done in a complete crossover fashion. I believe, your body should be held constant and your chest should be held out, and with your elbows over your wrist at all points, and then keeping your arms almost in a constant state from top to bottom of the movement. Two exercises I'm going to say are my go-tos here are going to be my flat bench flies combined with my incline barbell press. I use HIT training, and I like to do pre-exhaust, and I will pre-exhaust with my flat bench flies. Great movement, always has to be under control, because remember, I mean, you can do these on a machine as well, and it's probably not quite as, you know, it's a little bit harder to hurt yourself, although you can hurt yourself on anything. It's easier to control on a machine, but you do not get all the auxiliary muscle groups coming into play, and it doesn't build coordination. We can have another discussion someday just on machines versus free weights. We'll have that discussion, not here. Anyways, so I will always do flat bench flies. And then I will go into barbell press. Doing barbell press, I get a better range of motion. I still get a strength building exercise. And so, you know, wrapping up, that's generally my go-to exercises when we're talking about chest and back. Okay. So let's move on to what's be the next day in my routine, which is going to be legs. So legs are comprised of your calves, your hamstrings, and your quadriceps. Okay. I'm going to start with, you know, calves first. There's not numerous ways to flex your calves, but there's not really a million different exercises for calves. I mean, without going into things that people just invent which are useless, you know, you can either do seated calves, standing calves, you can do calves on a leg press machine, you can do donkey calf raises, you can do calf raises just free form on a calf block. You can do calf raises in a Smith machine, but they're still variations of just a calf raise. That's all they are. The two biggest differences are ones that you're doing seated and the ones you're doing standing. And we can also talk about, which I believe is mostly is a bit of a myth when it comes to, you know, toe placement and toe direction. I was always told in my first number of years of training, you know, you want to develop your outer calf, you know, you turn your toes, your heels out. You want to develop your inner calf, you know, you turn your heels in. And if you want to just develop the meat of the calf, you just, you know, straight ahead. I don't know how much substance there is to that, I'll be honest with you. I've always had good calf development. Some of it is genetic. I have brothers who don't do any exercise at all, but they're overweight, but they have tremendous calves. But I do believe there's nothing wrong with altering your foot placement, because if it does anything, if it even just, you know, stimulates your muscle from another angle, that's never a bad thing. And, you know, if you can only do one thing, you know, I believe, you know, I would go to, well, right now I don't have a standing machine, so I'll use a leg press, and I'll do my calf raises from the leg press. If I have the choice of both, seated calf machine or a standing calf machine, I'll almost exclusively take a standing calf machine. Not all machines are made equal. There's a lot of terrible machinery out there that just does not feel good. Okay. I will use something like you know, if I have a partner and I want to finish up, like get a really good burn in my calf, I might do donkey races. But in lieu of that, I lots of times will finish off just really tight, really slow, basically doing isometric contractions with my calves on a calf block. That's what I do. And it's a great way to finish them off. Flow up your hamstrings. Hamstrings, once again, is another one of those exercises where you're somewhat limited in the amount of exercise you can do. Not the amount, not that there aren't, you know, things out there, but which ones are actually effective and worth doing. The best exercise by far, and most gyms tend to have one, is a lying leg curl. Some of them also have a seated leg curl. Some of them have a single leg curl or alternate leg curl. You know, you can also do basically reverse Roman chairs. Many of you might see people, where they basically have their ankles locked in between two pads, and if they're doing it correctly, they're keeping their upper torso locked, and they're basically just do the negative portion of the movement. Not a lot of people I know, at least at the beginning, have enough strength to do both a positive and a negative portion of that movement, because it takes a lot of hamstring strength, and it has to be done under control to make sure you do not get injured. Other versions are definitely doing good mornings. Okay, many people do good mornings, both for lower back and for hamstring. The lower you go in the movement, the more you take into account your lower back, and you then venture away from your hamstrings to your lower back. Just give me just a moment here, please. I just got my microphone just for a second. Sorry about that. I wasn't sure if you could hear that or not. My dog was just driving me crazy in the background. I found out that I have to put him in his kennel, or he gets too rambunctious and noisy when I'm doing the broadcast. So those are great exercises for your hamstrings. Like I said, the reverse Roman chair. Some people will call it a Nordic curl. Good mornings, or some version be a lying leg curl or a seated leg curl. Without a doubt, the go-to exercise, if you could only do one, would be a lying leg curl. You can build some good strength. It can be a good isolation movement. It is a great exercise, and it's tougher to do it with just a dumbbell, but in a pinch, if you have a partner, you can make it work. If you raise the end of one bar on the bench, put a dumbbell between your legs. Tougher to keep the tension on the hamstrings, but it is possible. I've worked on far inferior machinery over all my years of training, and it is possible. Okay. Anyways, that's it for hamstrings. So we'll move on to quadriceps. Quadriceps, really, there's a whole gamut. We're gonna stick to thinking like a bodybuilder or a fitness athlete. Okay. So, you have leg curls, and many leg curl leg press. You can get leg presses at various angles, even seated leg, completely inverted to 45-degree leg press, to literally every other version in between. They make them in all different ways. They're not all as effective, but the leg press overall is a good movement. Then you have squats, you have back squats, you have front squats, you have Smith machine squats. Okay, you have leg extensions, you have lunges. Lunges, some people, it'll also bring in your hamstrings to some degree. Okay, if I can only do one exercise, it would always be squats. But I don't believe that squats are the only exercise that can build you muscle size and muscle hardness and muscle separation. I honestly believe that you can do that with leg extensions and leg press as well. Just if you have a background, you have to understand the squat itself, and I'm talking mainly about a back squat, because a front squat is mainly used by individuals who are into Olympic lifting. Because when you're coming out of the clean and jerk, for example, they're coming right out from dead ass to the ground, and they practice a lot of front squats to develop that strength in their quads to do that. Okay, but for the sake of most people in the gym, you are very seldom ever going to see anybody doing a front squat. Occasionally you will. It's extremely hard for many reasons. It's a very difficult exercise to do, first of all. Second of all, it's very hard to breathe when you're doing that, because the bar sits very high on your clavicle, and it just makes it extremely hard to breathe while you're doing that. So if I could only do one, I would do squats. My go-to exercises right now, though, are leg extensions followed by heavy leg press on a 45-degree. I generally put the seat most of the way up, but not all the way up, so I do have a good range of motion. I always emphasize the negative portion of that exercise, and I will generally finish off with a set of squats. And I do mean a set of squats. And that is a very thorough leg workout. Okay. So those are my go-tos when it comes to legs. So let's move on to shoulders and arms. Excuse me, just a minute. Okay, shoulders and arms. So you have 3 heads of your delts. You know, your side delt, rear delt, and your front delt. You have your triceps, your bicep, and your forearms. I don't believe that anybody needs to train forearms directly. Let's just get that out in the open. Forearms are worked so much through almost every upper body exercise that, if anything, they're overtrained. So you don't want to do any direct work. Every time you grip a barbell, every time you grip a dumbbell, whatever the case may be, machine, grab on the handles on a machine, you're working your forearms. So you don't need any direct work there. So let's just work into, biceps first of all. Bicep, I mean, there's such a gamut. No use, stating them all here right now, but you could do dumbbell curls. You could be doing dumbbell incline curls. You could be doing dumbbell concentration curls. You could be doing hammer curls, reverse barbell curls, barbell curls. Really, the list just goes on and on. I mean, anything you can dream of, I mean, people have. But you don't need to get fancy, I guess is the thing I want to drive home to people. You don't need to get fancy. My go-to exercise for years was always dumbbell barbell curls. Always. That combined with concentration curls. I use those exercises almost exclusively. I stayed away from barbell curls for a lot of years. Arms are all, and I have to say, I have to openly admit, it's one of those things that was always hard for me to wrap my head around. Because I don't have the longest bicep insertions, barbell curls just did not feel right for me. But in my later years, I've learned to make up for that feeling through, developing mind to muscle connection. And it's really paid off. And now I get more out of barbell curls. There's also preacher curls. Once again, I use those to emphasize the lower portion. Not that it's going to change the insertion of my bicep, but by using every portion of the muscle through the full range, including the lowest range, I want to increase my development as much as possible to fill in, that gap between my forearm and my bicep. That's all you can do, with the deal you've been dealt. Outside of resorting to drugs and injections, which many people are doing these days, they just inject shit in their arms, their forearms, and the next thing you know, there's no more gap there. But we do things naturally, and that's the only way we're going to do it. So, what are my go-to exercises right now for bicep? I have to say, reverse barbell curls and preacher curls. That is what I'm focusing in on right now. I still finish off with some concentration curls, but those are my 2 go-tos right now. Yeah. So let's go into triceps. Actually, you know what? I think we're running a little over here at this time. I didn't even realize I got so into that, it just kind of dragged on. I'm going to pick up, maybe we'll go back into bicep and tricep and do shoulders and arms on our next excursion here. Rather than making this long video, we're gonna can it here. I just want to say before I sign off that I appreciate everybody that is watching. I hope that many people will get the word out, get this platform out, start making comments and, start, making comments about what you'd like to see on the show. Let people know that we have Spotlight Fridays, that, this is your chance to, to talk to people and, have people realize, just what it is that you've accomplished in the last while, or big changes you made in your life, how it's affected your whole lifestyle. Let's build this platform. Let's make the natural bodybuilding world every bit as strong, if not stronger, than the drug-enhanced world. I hope that you're like me, that you're getting tired of these people getting the spotlight, which they don't deserve. Don't put them down as people, but what they're doing is not right. They've ruined a good sport group, a number of sports, every sport under the sun, as a matter of fact. And it's time we stop, believing that it's just okay that everybody's, that's their choice, because their choice is actually affecting many other people, either directly or indirectly. Anyways, with that said, it is Friday. I want everybody to have a grand weekend. As usual, Sunday, I usually put out what's coming up in the shows for the week. I hope you'll tune in next week, and hopefully we'll have a guest. Anyways, until then, Gold Fleers Naturally signing out. My name is Perry. I hope you have a great weekend. Take care.